Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Julie here, Mood Life. We are reading through the Bible in a year. In 1 Kings right now, we're reading through the Chronological Bible. Let's get moving. I'm grabbing my beverage here. Oh, I don't want to spill it. Okay, this mug is Live Life in Full Bloom. I make good coffee sometimes. So let's get moving here. Day 135, I believe. Yes, day 135. Okay, this begins with a little bit of a narration. Construction of cities and royal palace. While the temple has been under construction, so too has been a royal palace for Solomon. The palace actually requires 6 more years to complete than the temple itself and includes separate dwellings for both Solomon and Pharaoh's daughter, whom he had married. Solomon's building program includes the construction or repair of many cities throughout his kingdom, a task accomplished through the use of forced labor by captives living within the country. So 1 Kings, beginning at 1 Kings 7:1. 13 years in building. It took Solomon 13 years, however, to complete the construction of his palace. A description of the palace. He built the palace of the forest of Lebanon, 100 cubits long, 50 wide and 30 high, with 4 rows of cedar columns supporting trimmed cedar beams. It was roofed with cedar above the beams that rested on the columns, 45 beams, 15 to a row. Its windows were placed high in sets of 3, facing each other. All the doorways had rectangular frames. They were in the front part in sets of 3, facing each other. He made a colonnade 50 cubits long and 30 wide. In front of it was a portico, and in front of that, were pillars and an overhanging roof. He built the throne hall, the hall of justice, where he was to judge, and he covered it with cedar from floor to ceiling. And the palace in which he was to live, set further back, was similar in design. Solomon also made a palace like this hall for Pharaoh's daughter, whom he had married. All these structures, from the outside to the great courtyard and from foundation to eaves, were made of blocks of high-grade stone, cut to size and trimmed with a saw on their inner and outer faces. Excuse me. The foundations were laid with large stones of good quality, some measuring 10 cubits and some 8. Above were high-grade stones, cut to size, and cedar beams. The great courtyard was surrounded by a wall of 3 courses of dressed stone and 1 course of trimmed cedar beams, as was the inner courtyard of the temple of the Lord with its portico. God's covenants with Solomon. When Solomon had finished the temple of the Lord and the royal palace, he had succeeded in carrying out all he had in mind to do in the temple of the Lord and in his own palace. The Lord appeared to him at night and said, "I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself as a temple for sacrifices. When I shut up the heavens so that there is no rain, or command locusts to devour the land, or send a plague among my people, if my people, who are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Now my eyes will be open and my ears attentive to the prayers offered in this place. I have chosen and consecrated this temple so that my name may be there forever. My eyes and my heart will always be there. As for you, if you walk before me as David your father did, and do all I command and observe my decrees and laws, I will establish your royal throne as I covenanted with David your father when I said, you shall never fail to have a man to rule over Israel. But if you turn away and forsake the decrees and commands I have given you, and go off to serve other gods and worship them, then I will uproot Israel from my land, which I have given them, and will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. I will make it a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. And though this temple is now so imposing, all who pass by will be appalled and say, why has the Lord done such a thing to this land and to this temple? People will answer, because they have forsaken the Lord, the God of their fathers, who brought them out of Egypt, and have embraced other gods, worshiping and serving them. That is why he brought all this disaster on them. Hiram displeased. At the end of 20 years, during which Solomon built these two buildings, the temple of the Lord and the royal palace, King Solomon gave 20 towns in Galilee to Hiram, king of Tyre. I say it's Hiram, I think I said Hiram, king of Tyre, because Hiram had supplied him with all the cedar and pine and gold he wanted. But when Hiram went from Tyre to see the towns that Solomon had given him, he was not pleased with them. What kind of towns are these you have given me, my brother? He asked, and he called them the land of Kabul, a name they have to this day. Now Hiram had sent to the king 120 talents of gold. Hiram returns the cities. At the end of 20 years, during which Solomon built the temple of the Lord and his own palace, Solomon rebuilt the villages that Hiram had given him and settled Israelites in them. The capture of Hamath. Solomon then went to Hamath Zobah, and he captured it. Building of cities. He also built up Tadmor in the desert and all the store cities he had built in Hamath. He rebuilt Upper Beth Horon and Lower Beth Horon as fortified cities with walls and with gates and bars, as well as Baaloth and all his store cities and all the cities for his chariots and for his horses, whatever he desired to build in Jerusalem, in Lebanon, and throughout all the territory he ruled. The use of forced labor. All the people left from the Amorites, the Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. These peoples were not Israelites. That is, their descendants remaining in the land, whom the Israelites could not exterminate. These Solomon conscripted for his slave labor force, as it is to this day. But Solomon did not make slaves of any of the Israelites. They were his fighting men, his government officials, his officers, his captains, and the commanders of his chariots and charioteers. They were also chief officials in charge of Solomon's projects, 550 officials supervising the men who did the work. Here is the account of the forced labor King Solomon conscripted to build the Lord's temple, his own palace, the supporting terraces, the wall of Jerusalem, and Hazar, Megiddo, and Gezer. First of all, the new house for his wife. Solomon brought Pharaoh's daughter up from the city of David to the palace he had built for her, for he said, my wife must not live in the palace of David, king of Israel, because the palaces the ark of the Lord has entered are holy. The navy formed with Hiram. King Solomon also built ships at Ezion-Geber, which is now Elath and Edom, on the shore of the Red Sea. And Hiram sent his men, sailors who knew the sea, to serve in the fleet with Solomon's men. They sailed to Ophir and brought back 420 talents of gold, which they delivered to King Solomon. The king had a fleet of trading ships at sea, along with ships of Hiram. Once every 3 years it returned, carrying gold, silver, and ivory, and apes and baboons. So now there's a little commentary here entitled The Extent of Solomon's Glory. Because Solomon had asked for wisdom instead of wealth, God promised to give him both, wisdom beyond all men and untold riches. Over the years of Solomon's reign, God's promise has become reality. Solomon's kingdom has developed into the most peaceful and prosperous kingdom ever known. Solomon's glory is documented not only by official statistics, but also by the visit of the Queen of Sheba. The visit itself is altogether remarkable, particularly because the Queen's home in southern Arabia, perhaps the modern country of Yemen, is a 1,200-mile camel ride across hot desert territories inhabited by roving groups of bandits ready to relieve the queen of the treasure which she carries. 1,200-mile camel ride. Wow. What motivates her to come so great a distance is far more than mere curiosity at Solomon's wealth. It is the search for wisdom and insight which compels her, as it has compelled people of all times, and she is not in the least disappointed. Solomon's wisdom from 1 Kings 4. God gave Solomon wisdom and very great insight and a breadth of understanding as measureless as the sand on the seashore. Solomon's wisdom was greater than the wisdom of all the men of the East and greater than all the wisdom of Egypt. He was wiser than any other man, including Ethan, the Ezrahite, wiser than Heman, Calcol, and Darda, the sons of Mahol. And his fame spread to all the surrounding nations. He spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs numbered 1,005. He described plant life, from the cedar of Lebanon to the hyssop that grows out of walls. He also taught about animals and birds, reptiles, and fish. Men of all nations came to listen to Solomon's wisdom, sent by all the kings of the world who had heard of his wisdom. So now Solomon's wealth. From 1 Kings 10, the weight of the gold that Solomon received yearly was 666 talents, not including the revenues from merchants and traders and from all the Arabian kings and the governors of the land. King Solomon made 200 large shields of hammered gold. 600 bekas of gold went into each shield. He also made 300 small shields of hammered gold with 3 minas of gold in each shield. The king put them in the palace of the forest of Lebanon. Then the king made a great throne inlaid with lavery and overlaid with fine gold. The throne had 6 steps, and its back had a rounded top. On both sides of the seat were armrests, with a lion standing beside each of them. 12 lions stood on the 6 steps, one at either end of each step. Nothing like it had ever been made for any other kingdom. All King Solomon's goblets were gold, and all the household articles in the palace of the forest of Lebanon were pure gold. Nothing was made of silver, because silver was considered of little value back in Solomon's day. The king made silver as common in Jerusalem as stones, and cedar as plentiful as sycamore fig trees in the foothills. King Solomon was greater in riches and wisdom than all the other kings of the earth. The whole world sought audience with Solomon to hear the wisdom God had put in his heart. Year after year, everyone who came brought a gift, articles of silver and gold, robes, weapons and spices, and horses and mules. So horses and chariots. Solomon accumulated chariots and horses. He had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horses, which he kept in the chariot cities, and also with him in Jerusalem. Solomon had 4,000 stalls for chariot horses. Solomon's horses were imported from Egypt and from Kue. Kue. The royal merchants purchased them from Kue. They imported a chariot from Egypt for 600 shekels of silver and a horse for 150. They also exported them to all the kings of the Hittites, of the Arameans. So the extent of the kingdom. And Solomon ruled over all the kingdoms from the river to the land of the Philistines as far as the border of Egypt. These countries brought tribute and were Solomon's subjects all his life. For he ruled over all the kingdoms west of the river, from Tipshah to Gaza, and had peace on all sides. Security of the kingdom. The people of Judah and Israel were as numerous as the sand on the seashore. They ate, they drank, and they were happy. During Solomon's lifetime, Judah and Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, lived in safety, each man under his own vine and fig tree. Solomon's princes. So King Solomon ruled over all Israel, and these were his chief officials: Azariah, son of Zadok, the priest; Elihoreph and Ahijah, sons of Shisha, they were secretaries; Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, he was a recorder; Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, commander-in-chief; Zadok and Abiathar were priests; Azariah, son of Nathan, he was in charge of the district officers; Zabud, son of Nathan, a priest and personal advisor to the king; Ahishar, he was in charge of the palace; and Adoniram, son of Abda, he was in charge of forced labor. Solomon's commissionaries. Wait, that would be Solomon's commissaries. Solomon also had 12 district governors over all Israel, who supplied provisions for the king and the royal household. Each one had to provide supplies for 1 month in the year, and these are their names: Ben-Hur in the hill country of Ephraim, Ben-Decker in Mazak, Shalabim, Beth-Shemeth, and Elon Bethanan; Ben-Hesed in Aruboth, Succoth and all the land of Hepher were his; Ben-Abinadab in the Four Door, he was married to Taphath, daughter of Solomon; Baana, son of Ahilud, in Tanakh and Megiddo, in all of Bethshan next to Zarathan below Jezreel, from Bethshan to Abel Meholah across to Jokmeam; Ben-Geber in Ramoth Gilead. The settlements of Jar, sons of Manasseh and Gilead, were his, as well as the district of Argob in Bashan, and its 60 large walled cities with bronze gate bars. Ahinadab, son of Iddo, was in Mahanaim; Ahimaaz in Naphtali, he had married Basemath, daughter of Solomon; Baana, son of Hushai, in Asher and in Aloth; Jehoshaphat, son of Parah, in Issachar; Shimei, son of Elah, in Benjamin; Geber, son of Uri, in Gilead; the country of Shihon, king of the Amorites, and the country of Og, king of Bashan. He was the only governor over the district. Goodness, that's a lot of names that are hard to pronounce. Provisions for Solomon. Solomon's daily provisions were 30 cores of fine flour and 60 cores of meal, 10 head of stall-fed cattle, 20 of pasture-fed cattle, and 100 sheep and goats, as well as deer, gazelles, roebucks, and choice fowl. The district officers, each in his month, supplied provisions for King Solomon and all who came to the king's table. They saw to it that nothing was lacking. They also brought to the proper place their quotas of barley and straw for the chariot horses and the other horses. So now this is a report of the visit by the queen of Sheba, 1 Kings 10. When the queen of Sheba heard about the fame of Solomon and his relation to the name of the Lord, she came to test him with hard questions. Arriving at Jerusalem with a very great caravan, with camels carrying spices, large quantities of gold and precious stones, she came to Solomon and talked with him about all that she had on her mind. Solomon answered all her questions. Nothing was too hard for the king to explain to her. When the king of Sheba saw all the wisdom of Solomon and the palace he had built, the food on his table, the seating of his officials, the attending servants in their robes, his cupbearers, and the burnt offerings he made at the temple of the Lord, she was overwhelmed. She said to the king, "The report I heard in my own country about your achievements and your wisdom is true. But I did not believe these things until I came and saw with my own eyes. Indeed, not even half was told me. In wisdom and wealth you have far exceeded the report I heard. How happy your men must be. How happy your officials who continually stand before you and hear your wisdom. Praise be to the Lord your God, who has delighted in you and placed you on the throne of Israel. Because of the Lord's eternal love for Israel, he has made you king to maintain justice and righteousness." And she gave the king 120 talents of gold, large quantities of spices and precious stones. Never again were so many spices brought in as those the queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. Hiram's ships brought gold from Ophir, and from there they brought great cargoes of almug wood and precious stones. The king used the almug wood to make supports for the temple of the Lord and for the royal palace, and to make harps and lyres for the musicians. So much almug wood has never been imported or seen since that day. King Solomon gave the queen of Sheba all she desired and asked for. Besides that, he had given her out of his royal bounty. Then she left and returned with her retinue to her own country. So now Solomon celebrates his blessings, and this is from Psalm 72. Of Solomon. Endow the king with your justice, O God, the royal son with your righteousness. He will judge your people in righteousness, your afflicted ones with justice. The mountains will bring prosperity to the people, the hills the fruit of righteousness. He will defend the afflicted among the people and save the children of the needy. He will crush the oppressor. He will endure as long as the sun, as long as the moon, through all generations. He will be like rain falling on a mown field, like showers watering the earth. In his days the righteous will flourish. Prosperity will abound till the moon is no more. He will rule from sea to sea, and from the river to the ends of the earth. The desert tribes will bow before him, and his enemies will lick the dust. The king of Tarshish and of distant shores will bring tribute to him. The kings of Sheba and Seba will present him gifts. All kings will bow down to him, and all nations will serve him. For he will deliver the needy who cry out, the afflicted who have no one to help. He will take pity on the weak and the needy and save the needy from death. He will rescue them from oppression and violence, for precious is their blood in his sight. Long may he live. May gold from Sheba be given him. May people ever pray for him and bless him all day long. Let grain abound throughout the land. On the tops of the hills may it sway. Let its fruit flourish like Lebanon. Let it thrive like the grass of the field. May his name endure forever. May it continue as long as the sun. All nations will be blessed through him, and they will call him blessed. Praise be to the Lord God, the God of Israel, who alone does marvelous deeds. Praise be to his glorious name forever. May the whole earth be filled with his glory. Amen and amen. That ends today's reading. Thank you for joining me. Please join me again tomorrow. Have a blessed day.